Hello and welcome to GateDrop.com podcast. And this is the big one, Andy McKinstry. Red Bud Motocross of Nations this weekend. Are you ready for it? Your first trip to America as well?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, the Motocross the Nations, the last couple of years, it's been quite weird, obviously, because of COVID. It got cancelled 2 years ago, and then obviously last year, because it was during the GP season and COVID was still around, it meant America and Australia didn't come. So this year is probably the first proper Motocross Nations in 3 years since Arsenal, would say. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the event this year, even though last year, the uncertainty of it, the racing was quite good. And I think it was a success due to it being, throughout the GP season. I still think it'll be nice that this year all the big riders are racing, um, and the majority of all the big nations are going to turn up. So yeah, it should be a cracker, and of course we're going back to Red Bud, so it should be a cracker. I'm looking forward to it now. And, the weather is going to be better than the last time. I think it was 2018 when it was rain, and obviously the track was a bit wet, but this year I think it's going to be completely different conditions as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Should be really good.
Yeah, I was there in 2018 and the crowd and the facility was amazing. Obviously, the rain kind of ruined the paddock. It was pretty sloppy, but the track was actually pretty rideable for all the rain that had happened over the weekend. And on Monday, it was 30 degrees again. So they definitely got unlucky with the weather. But this year, as you said, I think it's actually going to be a bit colder as it has been this week. It's in around the 30s, but I think it's going to be sort of early 20s, high teens. So definitely more favoring the GP riders having a lower temperature. But as you say, all most of the big riders are there. We'll probably start with the negative. No Tim Geiger, no Jeffrey Hurlings, and no Tom Vial. And if you're American for reasons to win, there's not very many reasons they can't win, especially with those three out. Vial for me was a key part of France's chances of victory with his starts, with his speed on an MX2 bike. We know Marvin Musk will be fast, but is he going to be as fast as what Tom Vial could have been? It's probably doubtful he's going to be able to get to that level so quickly after not riding an MX2 for so long. Jeffrey Hurlings, we saw his speed. Most people still believe he's the fastest man on the planet whenever he's on it. And he's been injured all year, so he's not the biggest surprise. But after the way he rode Red Bud 4 years ago, he's a big component for Team Holland. Obviously, Glenn Coldenhoff will argue that he was the main guy 4 years ago, and he is going for Holland, so that's a boost for them. And then Tim Gadger, you always want the world champions racing at these events. And unfortunately, Slovenia aren't going, which is a bit of a shame because obviously Jan Pankar is a top 10 level MX2 rider now as well. And he's not going to get to go to Red Bud, and neither's Tim. So a bit of a blow there. The two world champions from 2022 not going to be at the event. For Justin Cooper, he won't have to race Tom Vial. He's not going to have to race Jet Lawrence, who's riding a 450. And he's not going to have to race Jago Gertz, who's also moving on a 450. So for the American, weak link's the wrong word, but the weaker of the three riders, you would imagine, would be Justin Cooper based on this year's results. He doesn't have to race probably the three fastest riders in MX2 in 2022. So that's going to be a result for him. And we'll move to America now. The 450 class, Chase Sexton, Eli Tomac, they are going to be hard to beat. And I think it's going to be down to whether Justin Cooper can get the starts and get the results in the MX2 class to back up what you would imagine is going to be. If they're not going to win it, they're going to probably be in second or third. You can't see anything lower than top three for either rider, and you'd imagine at least one of them will win at least one moto, maybe all three.
Yeah, and just to touch on your negatives that you started off on, for me the biggest negative is probably Roman Federer not going, because in the first place you didn't really expect Geiser in Slovenia to come, so you can sort of get over that. Hurling is injured. Injuries are part of the sport. Nothing much we can do about that. Tom Vial, it's obviously, I think he obviously would have been picked by the French team, but he just decided not to go because he wants to focus on Supercross. So that was more his decision. But I mean, for Roman Federer to get overlooked and not get picked, I'm not sure if that was down to Kawasaki not really supporting the event and maybe asking the French team for too much money to send a bike over there for him. Maybe that's down to it. But still, for me, one of the biggest disappointment is probably Federer not to get picked, because
Yeah.
since he's came back to the GPs, he's been on the pace, and knocking on the door for podiums. A bit of bad luck, I think, um, because but he definitely had the speed for podiums in MXGP. But yeah, to touch on America, obviously they haven't won the event in 11 years, but I mean, it's looking like this year, if they don't win it this year, there's going to be serious questions going to be asked of them because, as we've already alluded to, there's no Jeffrey Hurlings, there's no Tim Geiger, there's no Roman Febvre, there's no Tom Vial. So, arguably the fastest GP guys aren't even going to be there. Um, Obviously, we've got Maxime Renault, who's had a fantastic rookie season in MXGP. Him, Jeremy Sear, Glenn Coldenhoff, they're probably going to be the main three. I would throw Jorge Prado's name into that hat usually, but I think for his standards, he's had a bit of an off season and is off form on it quite a bit off his best. So yeah, I think if you're America, you're going into this. I think it's between, you would probably say America and Australia. America probably have the more solid team. Australia have a really solid team as well, but as fast as both Lawrence brothers are and Evans are, can they all stay out of trouble over both days? That's probably going to be their biggest question mark, and especially Mitch. I mean, if we go, he's had a phenomenal year really from where he was this time last year, but I didn't even know if he'd ever make it back to be a top 10 GP rider. He was comfortably that at the end of the year, but can he put 30-minute plus 2 laps together? I think that's probably the biggest unknown.
Yeah, Australia in theory are probably second favourite, especially with the Lawrence brothers knowing the track. They've raced there before. They're both on really good form. And Mitch Evans has certainly showed the speed. He hasn't always got the results that maybe that speed should be given him in Grand Prix racing. If it's too hot, it was probably going to work against him. So the lower temperatures that look to be coming into the weekend, I think, will suit Mitch. Obviously, he has to stay away from mistakes, but his starts have been good recently. He's got to be buoyed on by the speed of Jet Lawrence and the level of Hunter. So they know coming in, they have a strong team. But I would also add France into that, and maybe even Holland as the three teams maybe that have a bit of a chance of beating the Americans. Holland's because obviously you've Glenn Coldenhoff, the experience on that track. You've Calvin Villandrin, who was very quick even on the 250 there 4 years ago until he got that issue with the eye that ultimately cost Holland the win. But for me, Kaido Wolf was the key to the Dutch success. I don't think Guillaume Fares is probably more well known in America than Kaido Wolf right now. But this could be the scene, the race, and the event that Kaido Wolf shows himself to America. The rest of the world know what an amazing talent he is. He's probably maybe even on that generational level of talent of a Jet Lawrence, but he has to start getting the results now. We saw the speed he has, especially in the Silverstone Grand Prix. And the Turkish Grand Prix, the very last round there, he was really quick on the ultimate hard pack. So I think he's starting to become the complete rider. The problem for Kai is his starts aren't always there. Although he's only 17, he's still quite a tall guy. So that could be the problem. But if he gets the starts and he can get away at the front of the MX2 pack and then amongst those 450s, I expect him to be really impressive and challenge for the 250 MX2 win. Now, if he can put a lot of bikes between himself and Cooper, that could be the chance the Dutch have if both Calvin and Glenn can get the starts in the 450s and stay relatively close to the Americans. The problem is all those three guys need to have their top level performances, and I think that's the same for the French and the same for the Australians. Whereas the Americans, you're kind of more expecting the level Sexton and Tomac have been on. They've been bringing their A game week out, week in under pressure. So the ability for them to deliver, you think is going to be very much in their advantage. The other guys are going to have to make sure. The likes of Renault, I think, could maybe push those guys on his day to a certain level. Jeremy Sear individually can do well, but for the team, I think Australia, France, and Holland are probably the three biggest threats to America, but still, you have to say America are overwhelming favourites. And as you mentioned, they haven't won in 11 years. And if they can't get it this year, with Eli Tomac retiring from outdoors, I don't know when they're going to do it because hurling should be back next year. You might have a Tim Geiger. The field for an American, even individually, next season is going to be deeper than it is this year. And they've also done have Paul Jonas actually for Latvia. So America, it's their chance to win. They have home ground. They have a lot of things going their way. They've chased Sex in the form of his life. Eli Tomac on his best form, trying to get redemption. Imagine is a big thing for him from Red Bud 4 years ago. And Justin Cooper, I think he's actually a good pick for MX2. Him or Craig would have been good, but Cooper's starts are usually good and he's still fast, especially when he gets those starts. The only issue for Cooper is if he gets a bad start, sometimes he's not great at coming through the pack, and that's why any of the countries that think they have a chance of winning are going to have to execute their starts. Hope Cooper doesn't and try to make the advantage that way. I feel that's the best chance for any of the other countries to try and take this nation's title away from America, but for sure America have to be the favourites.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it wouldn't be that much of a surprise to see Saxon and Tomac both be in the top three and both their motos on the Sunday. So if they do that and they deliver, it means they only really need
Mm-hmm.
Cooper to deliver once because
Yeah.
obviously you can drop a ride. So I mean, I think Cooper's a solid enough pick, and I think he will have that one good ride that's good enough to win it for them. You touched a lot on Kyle Wolf there, and obviously he's an unbelievable talent. But you know, it's his first motocross the nations, and he wouldn't be the first rider to come to his first motocross the nations and maybe not perform to his best. Not saying that will necessarily happen, but you know, I don't think you can put an awful lot of expectations when it's the guy's first motocross the nations. We've seen Maxime Renault in his first, and Rowan van der Moosdijk in his first nations not really deliver. So I maybe wouldn't put too much expectations into Wolf. Just let him get the event under his belt, and then he'll know what to expect in the future. But if he does ride the best of his ability, obviously the Dutch should be knocking on the door for a podium. It's going to be sandy, but it's not going to be a Lommel or a Riola sand or anything like that. So it's not really going to benefit them that way. So I think it's a track everybody likes, and they're all probably going to enjoy it. So I don't think the track will really favour any of the nations apart from America, obviously, because it's in their backyard and they race a national there every year.
So if anyone's going to beat Eli Tomac and Chase Sexton, who are you putting your money on? Maxime Renault, Jeremy Sears, Jet Lawrence. So those are your top three there.
Mm,
Probably mine. Iago Gertz, we'll touch on him in a minute. He's going
sure, maybe.
450 as well. So you don't know what he'll do either. Quite light and should be getting good starts.
Yeah, it probably would be those three. I mean, it's a shame Jorge Prado isn't at the best of his ability because I think if we go back a year and the way he was riding, I think he'd be
Yeah.
right there. But
Depends what
he
Jorge
hasn't been
Prado
himself
shows up,
this
doesn't it?
year. Yeah, if he shows up last year's level, I don't think he'll be far away. But I don't really see that. For me, probably Jet Lawrence could be the biggest one. But then I was talking about Kyle Wolf and big expectations. It's sort of the same for Jet, and also he's going to be riding a 450, racing a 450 for the first time. So there's maybe even more unknown on Jet than there is on Kai. But Jet's had a phenomenal year, so I don't think pressure will really affect him too much, and it's probably going to be on the starts. Jeremy Sears is one for me that's had a great year, but again, I think if he gets a good start, he probably has the speed to run with them. Will he have the intensity for the 30 minutes plus two? That's maybe where the um, Tomac and Saxon might have that little bit of an advantage, but
They're used to it.
so it's also going to be interesting to see how they prepare the track. Will they level it overnight? Will they leave it rough? I think
Yeah,
the
it's a
rougher
good
it
point.
gets, the better it is for the GP guys. But it's hard to know. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Jet on the 450 for sure, and Yago Gertz. I think obviously Jet has a lot of hype, and rightly so. He's an unbelievable rider, but Jago is an unbelievable rider himself, and also after losing the MX2 title, he's probably going to come here and really try and end the season on a high. I have seen a few videos of him in the 450, and he's looking really comfortable actually. So I think if there's one thing I'm looking forward to seeing the most in this event, it actually might be Jago on the 450. That's
Mm-hmm.
how excited I am to see him on the bigger bike because I think he's got a really good future, and nobody can really doubt his speed or his talent. It's just his mentality, but in theory, he shouldn't really be under any pressure this weekend because Belgium aren't going to be unless they have a miracle. They're not going to be knocking on the door for a nation's victory. Like so,
Yeah.
Gertz can just go out and ride his own race. I think.
And for Belgium as well, it's almost they've no pressure, but they have actually a decent team this year. Liam Everts, he raced the nations last year and did pretty well. This year, I think he's taken a step forward. He's a sort of top six guy now in MX2, almost had a podium at Lommel. He's going factory KTM next year, so definitely I think Liam could surprise. Again, starts are going to be key, but for Yago, it's probably the perfect race for him. He's no pressure We saw obviously the 250 times him and the Vial were putting in were very competitive on a 450 anyway. He's out, which is a fantastic experience riding at Ricky Carmichael's old farm, which is now the Star Racing facility. He's riding with Dylan Ferrandis, who was almost maybe going to be out of the nations because Justin Barcia should take him out at Budds Creek. That's where the rumours that maybe Reuben Fernandez would then take his place. But it looks like Ferrandis is back on the bike. He's going to be there at Red Bud. But again, the other knock on France is how 100% is Dylan going to be? And we're going to get the real Dylan Ferrandis. He hasn't rode many outdoor races this year, coming in with the back injury. But at least, you know, if he is fast, he's going to be on the pace. So that could help France if he's there. But again, it's a bit of an unknown. Like a lot of these, the non-USA teams, they're competitors. You just don't quite know what level the rider's going to be at coming in. Jorge Prado, you mentioned as well. He was fantastic 4 years ago. He actually beat Eli on an MX2 bike, whole shot the race, held off Hurlings for a bit. He even tried to battle Hurlings as well. So if we can get that Jorge Prado on a 450 with those starts, he should be up there in the mix. But again, he's had COVID again. The fitness is a question mark, almost a wee bit similar to what Ken Roxon's been going through this year. Can get the start, can run the pace, but maybe can't last it. But fortunately for Jorge, he said 2 or 3 weeks from the last Grand Prix to work on getting healthy. And if he can go to his normal potential, you have Reuben Fernandez, who's very, very fast, but again, suffering with a few injuries. So he's had a couple of weeks to get that. And then you have Fares, who could be on the Star Racing Yamaha. And, you know, he's got confidence and speed now coming in from the AMA Nationals. So they're actually a sneaky strong team as well. But for me, Belgium they're almost in a perfect scenario. They have a solid team. And if they all ride well, they could be in that sort of 3rd to 5th fight. And I think Jeremy Van Horbeck, his last race, he always rides well at the Nations. If that Beta can go through two motos, I think he's going to have good, decent results. Iago could be very, very fast. And as you alluded to, there's a few guys switching classes. And I think to see Jet Lawrence on a 450, to see Iago Gertz on a 450 is going to be 2 of the most exciting parts of this race. And then for me, also the MX2 class, you have Joe Shimoda. He's going to be quick. He's going to be looking to win that. Hunter Lawrence, he's the pressure of potentially winning the event. Can he get the starts and can he cut out the mistakes? You've Liam Everts. Could he be a dark horse in that class as well? Simon Langenfelder for Germany, 3rd in the MX2 World Championship. Again, he's not much to lose, everything to gain. And then you have Kai de Wolf, who I might just pick to win MX2 if he can get the starts. Although you could also go Joe Shimoda. Who are you going for?
MX2, probably Hunter. If he can just cut out the mistakes and get half decent starts, I'll probably go for Hunter to win MX2. Big shout going for Kyle Wolf on his nation's debut. Very big shout. Obviously he has got the speed and the talent, but just not sure. It will be interesting though. I think like Simon Lagenfelder is a rider that's really, really underrated for me, and he's actually raced the nations before. He raced at Assen and maybe somewhere else as well. So he knows what the event's like. He's under no real pressure because Germany aren't going to be expected to do much. So I think Lagenfelder won't be far away either. But for me, it's going to be probably Lawrence or Shimoda. And in terms of biggest unknowns, I think it has to be Marvin Musk. He did end the season racing one national round. I think that was his first motocross race in maybe 2 years. But obviously, the Nations is going to be a different kettle of fish for him because it's a 2-day format. There's a lot of riding, especially on the Saturday. They get a free practice and then a time practice, which is like 20 minutes each. And then they get their moto. So that's already as much riding as he probably did at the MA National. So it's going to be, I'm just not sure if he's going to be ready for 2 days. 2 days racing at that intensity for France to really challenge, but
even though he only needs one result and his starts are usually quite good, so he's obviously got the talent and speed. It's more a fitness thing, and but I think for one moto, even that first moto, he gets the start, he gets that top 10 or whatever result. We've seen in previous years the MX2 rider can be key for the win, and that's probably where the other teams are going to have to capitalize, and starts are going to come with that. And Musquin has a lot of experience. Remember, he rode MX2 in I think 2015 or 2016 at Turney, and him and Jeremy Martin were on another level. So a bit of that Marvin Musquin would do France no harm in 2022, but it's a quick adjustment for him to go from riding a 450 in Supercross to a 250 outdoors, but at least he knows the track, so there's a lot of familiarity as well.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting. For me, it is the biggest unknown in MX2, and it is going to be interesting. He's probably going to be one rider that's praying that they level the track overnight. It's not, it doesn't really get gnarly, as we often see in GP tracks, because he's probably not used to it. Obviously, he does ride quite a lot of motocross. He goes to the practice track, and he's actually riding quite a lot with Crowley at the start of the year. But it's to take that intensity from practice to racing is completely different. And while he was good for 10, 15 minutes in the MA National that he done, he did tire at the end there. So it certainly will be interesting. But whether or not he can do enough for France to get on the podium does remain to be seen. But he could be the key, actually, because I think Renault is going to be strong, I think. But again, Fernandez, like Musquin, is unknown because he hasn't even, well, he did race, but that did not end too well for him with getting involved with Bam Bam. So really, he comes in having not raced this year, really. So it's going to be interesting. And obviously, the AMA riders do need to adjust to the 2 day format, which is another element to the Motocross the Nations that they have to adapt to. Two nations we haven't really talked about yet is last year's winners, Italy.
Just
It's going
thinking
to be
about them,
interesting
yeah.
to see them. Obviously, Antonio Crowley has done a few AMA nationals this year, but for him, I think the priority this year was Red Bud. So he done enough to get picked, and I think he'll be all in at Red Bud. Then we've obviously got Mario Guadagnini, who decided after a few rounds of MX2 this year to make the jump up to the 450, and actually he made a good adjustment to the
He was quick,
MXGP
yeah.
class, and at the last round he got his first top five overall, so he'll come in feeling good. And then Andrea Adamu, who started the season really on fire, got his first podium. The issue with him is he recently picked up a knee injury, so he might not be 100%. But I think overall that's a solid team, and I think we'll see a stronger Antonio Crowley at Red Bud this weekend than we've seen at the MA Nationals probably. And one other nation that rarely gets any sort of hype but actually have a lot of success at the Motocross the Nations is Estonia. They
That's
always
right.
seem to do really, really well. I mean, I
Yeah.
think they finished fourth maybe 2 or 3 years in a row
They're so
there.
consistent. They've
And
always three
yeah,
solid riders. Have no real
yeah,
weakness as such.
yeah. They've got Tana Leok. It must be his 300th appearance at the Motocross the Nations this weekend. And then solid as a rock, Harry Kulas. And I think Red Bull will be a very good track for him. He's obviously focuses more on the British Championship these days, but he did get a fill-in ride at the Gavin Van Venrooy Yamaha team. And each GP he rode, he got better and better. And then you've got the young Talviku, who actually raced a bit of everything this year. Started this
Yeah.
championship in the MX 250, then went to did a bit of MX2 that didn't collide with the MX 250, but then got an opportunity to race the British Championship and some AMA nationals with Neil Prince's team. So he's really been a bit like Tana Leok, a bit of a journeyman this year,
hmm
racing all over the world. So it'll be nice to him for end of season racing in America, the Motocross the Nations. But honestly, don't be surprised to see Estonia in the top five because they always seem to pull it out of the hat every year. It's quite unbelievable, really.
Yeah, and they're all fast. They've no weaknesses, and generally just plug away 30 minutes and never give in, which always goes well for that event. Just going back to Italy, and Caroli's probably still the headline there. I think we saw in Budds Creek, it didn't last too long for Antonio, but he was second quickest, if I remember rightly, on a track he knows. I think it showed that he was more prepared going into that round than he was all the other rounds. And even then, he was sort of getting himself into top five speed. Maybe a podium wasn't far away. Now, obviously, he did crash on the first lap on Budds Creek and small crack, I think, in his wrist. So that ruled him out of podium potential there because I think that wouldn't have been far away. But I think even the lap time showed that he has the speed. I think Red Bud, the Americans are going to see the best Crowley they've seen all year. But again, the first 5 minutes for Crowley in America, those opening couple of laps were probably his weakness, and he would work his way back into almost where he started at the end of the race. He will get this. This is where the 2 day format might help him because he will get the Saturday to maybe work out the bugs, get the practice time instead of just two 15-minute sprint sessions that they have in America straight into racing. They're going to get their half hour in the morning. They're going to get a 20-minute race. And that could help the GB guys as well, just set up their bikes for that track. And obviously Guadagnini, first time there in a 450. Andrea Adamu, his first time there. All very good riders. And again, like a lot of the other decent teams from Europe, they have the potential to be very good if they pull out their best performances. We
Yeah.
saw Adamu have some really strong rides. Guadagnini, as you mentioned, in Turkey, he's been sort of a top 5, 6, 7 pace at times on a 450, and with the depth of that class, that's really, really impressive. So again, Italy could be going for a podium. If Caroli can bring the form he showed last year, he could be even in the mix for wins. You just don't, again, you just don't know. And I think that's what makes the nations quite exciting this year. Aside from America, it's which team's going to step up.
And I think another point to make on Crowley is it'll be the first time he's racing against the MXGP guys
Yeah,
since he
that's a good
actually
point.
retired. So, whenever he was racing the AMA Nationals, it's completely different because it's a lot of unknown for him. He's
Mm-hmm.
racing against the Americans in their home backyard. But, it'll be interesting to see if maybe, his mind just flicks a switch if he sees Sir Renault and, he was racing and beating these guys a year ago. So it'll be
Mm-hmm.
interesting to see if he's able to raise his game and he knows he can beat those guys. So it will be interesting. That could have another effect that, if he sees Sir and Coldenhoff, because mentally in his head he probably thinks he's better than those guys, even if he hasn't raced them in a year, because it's Antonio Crowley at the end of the day. So that actually might help him racing against the GP guys again and less unknowns.
And don't forget, we could see the resumption of Caroli v Prado. That was pretty intense at times last season, and they might get one more shot at beating each other this season.
That could definitely be interesting. It wouldn't surprise me if Crowley beat Prado, to be honest. But then I suppose Prado sort of did end it a bit stronger in Turkey,
Yeah, he
so
was getting
hopefully,
better at the last round, and
yeah, yeah.
he
So
knows the
hopefully
track
he's
as
able,
well. So that
yeah.
hopefully means he's less learning to do. But again, can he will he get the bike set up? We've seen that a few times in certain rounds this year. It's being comfortable. A comfortable Jorge Prado can really run with anyone. It's just what level of percentage comfort can he find and how healthy is he? But again, starts wise, he could be one of the guys
Mm,
proven to be hard to pass for the likes of Eli
mm,
Tomac or Chase Sexton. Red Bud as well isn't always the easiest to pass. Sometimes it can get quite one line, so it could make starts even more important. But unfortunately for the rest of the world, Eli Tomac, this is the year he seems to have his starts sorted. Usually that would be one of the question marks.
mm.
Even 4 years ago when the Kawasaki had Red Bull, he didn't get the best starts. But this year, the Yamaha's getting good starts with him on board. Chase Saxon gets starts, and we know Justin Cooper's got starts. So again, we're going back to America and looking at the fact that they seem to have all the bases covered. The competition isn't as strong as it could be. To me, it's going to be pretty difficult for them to lose it unless somebody like France all bring their A game.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I really can't see America getting beat this year. To be honest, I just want it to be sort of competitive. If it's
Yeah, put in
competitive,
the
I'll be
last
happy
motor.
enough. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I mean, it really is going to take something special to beat them, I think, even individually. I mean, I wouldn't be that surprised to see Eli and Chase go 1-2, to be honest.
No,
They've had a really good season this year. They've been a lot faster than anyone else in America, maybe except for Roxon for a few laps here or there and Anderson. But aside from that, they've been a level ahead of everyone in America. And like we've already alluded to, that the top 3 or 4 GP guys won't even be there. And then, you've got Renault. Can he start? Starts have been his weakness.
mm-hmm. He's the one guy
Sure,
that might have the pace to
yeah,
do it.
yeah, and
Yeah,
Sure is sort of similar. I think if he does get the starts, he could run with them for 10 or 15 minutes, but has he got that intensity for the whole moto? Again, it could depend on how rough the track is. I don't expect it to get rough at all, to be honest. So again, that probably does suit the Americans. It'll probably be, fairly fast and pin it to win it kind of style, which maybe suits them more over the GP guys as well. But they're all unknowns at the minute because we obviously don't know what the track is going to be like. So it will be interesting. But I'm in agreement with you. It's going to take something big to beat America. The only team that I wouldn't be shocked them to see beat America would be Australia. I know that you
mm-hmm.
think Holland and France are in that top 4 in terms of nations, and I agree with you there, but I would still be surprised if France, especially France, if they won it because they have so many unknowns this year. We don't know what Dillon's going in like, and we don't really know what Musquin's going in like, and Renault starts are a question mark. So
Yeah.
I'd be very surprised if they pulled it off. The Netherlands would maybe be the next safer bet. All their riders are a lot more solid, I think, but have they got the raw pace needed? Um, especially Calvin and Glenn, as fast as they are, will they have that raw pace to run with Chase and Eli in America? In Europe, absolutely, but it's going to be difficult around a Red Bull track, I think.
Yeah, and the one thing that could be exciting is if America do win, it means they're more than likely going to have to
Mm,
race the year after.
yeah,
So you're going to get to see them then back on a outside America track where probably I think it's France in 2023. I
yeah,
can't quite
Ernie,
remember.
yeah, Ernie, yeah.
So on one side that could be good, although they won't have Eli, who would have added a lot
Hmm.
to the event in France, but you'll have Sexton, Anderson, whoever. Jet Lawrence back on a 450. So America winning this year for the long term future of the event, because everyone likes to see the Americans racing, especially whenever it's in Europe, because they don't get to see them in person that much. So that could be a good thing if America win this year. They'll go with a 1, 2, 3 plates into France. But for me, the overriding question is who can step up to Saxon and Tomac. And I think that's with no Hurlings, with no Geyser,
Hmm.
with no
No
Fabra.
favor.
It's on Maxime Renault, Jeremy Sear, all these guys to prove their speed. Now America might not know them very well. I don't think Sear and Renault were the biggest names. Sear maybe and Renault recently. But yes, they would have heard of Hurlings and Geyser, but now it's time for the other riders. The guys we always talk about, it's a really deep field. It's their chance to show just how fast they are in America. Colton Hoff did it 4 years ago. Who's going to do it this year? And I think that's the challenge for all the GP riders on an individual level. And then obviously as countries, you could maybe throw Italy in there as the fifth. But again, it's just I think that's the beauty of it. You just don't know who can step up. There's certain riders
Yeah.
can, and you're just waiting to see if they will. But Saxon and Tomac are certainly the bar going into Red Bud.
I certainly think Jeremy Sure will be riding his heart out because he's
He
obviously
always
good friends
does.
with the Lawrence brothers. Yeah, and he always
Yeah, that's
does,
a
but
good point.
he's
Yeah.
obviously very good friends with the
Yeah.
Lawrence brothers, and the Lawrence brothers get so much hype. And
Mm-hmm.
nobody really talks about Jeremy and how many times has he finished runner up in the MXGP World Championship. So
Too
I
many for
think
his
he'll be
liking.
motivated to run with the Lawrences, and they shouldn't be too far off the front anyway. So yeah, he'll definitely be giving it his all, I think, and probably at the end of the weekend, if he beats the Lawrences, that'll be a good running joke probably for a while until the race again.
And you've in a strange way, Gertz v Jet. Now, ideally, what you would have
Mm,
wanted was Jet Lawrence, Tom Vial, Yago Gertz all riding MX2,
mm,
because I think that would have been a rapid
unbelievable.
top three, and they
Yeah,
could have all finished in the top five of the combined race, I think. But with Tom Vial not doing it and Yago and both Jet going on the 450, it's almost he can adapt to a 450 best.
mm,
Not necessarily who's faster on a 250 as it would have been. But again, there's so many storylines throughout the race. Joe Shimoda's going to be racing new competition. Chase Saxon as well. It's going to be his first time. So the only thing America have to deal with really is pressure. And if the likes of Renault turn out to be going as quick as those guys, they might think, I wasn't expecting this. And then how do they deal with that? Tomac, I think,
yeah,
will be fine. But we saw Saxon at the last round. Maybe under extreme pressure, he can crash.
yeah. And I think if, like you say, the pressure is the biggest thing, but also if something maybe goes wrong, if one of them
Yeah.
spins it in the first corner, gets in a pile up and starts from last, I think that's where maybe it could be their downfall if the panic or whatever. That is an element. But if they all get around the first corner okay, even in the top 10, I think that'll be enough. I think probably to do the job. I think Cooper, as we alluded to earlier, I think he just only needs one good moto if Chase and
Yeah.
Eli do their job, which they probably are going to do unless a mishap, like in the first corner crash. And even if it happens in qualifying, it really doesn't matter because the depth in each individual class isn't actually going to be that deep. So if you
It's not
crash in
like
the
a
first
real
corner,
MXGP race.
yeah. So if you crash in the first corner on the qualifying, you're probably still going to come back to at least top 10, which
Yeah,
is
easily.
fine.
Yeah.
It needs to really happen on the Sunday, to see how they react and the main thing is don't panic and just ride your race and ride your laps. But yeah, it certainly is going to be interesting. One team we haven't even talked about yet is GB actually. What was your thoughts on their rider selection?
I thought Ben Watson was a bit unlucky not to get picked. I mean, he
Yeah,
was
I mean
12th, wasn't he, in an MXGP? And for me,
yeah.
that's still a tough class. I know Ben has said he didn't have the year he wanted, and that's fair enough. He's very talented, and he's probably looking in towards top 10. But he still did have some decent rides within that top 10, and that class is very, very deep. So he would have been first on my list. Probably, and obviously Tommy Searle. Tommy's rode really, really well this year. And I don't mind Max Anstey and MX2. Anstey
Yeah,
usually performs. If the bike holds out, I think he's going to be a
yeah.
decent pick. But I can understand, obviously, Conrad Muse would have a shout there as well, but he was inconsistent this year. If you get the right Conrad Muse, then you probably would put him in MX2, but it's the risk. And obviously, for Britain, it's the expense of bringing him over. And I think the same in terms of that's how Dean Wilson's got on the team because he's a factory rider, he's in America, and it's logistically easier. Now, fortunately, Dean seemed to recover some form at the end of the season there, even though he had that really bad injury. The first moto was looked a bit shaky on his comeback, but he seemed to be steadily improving towards the end. So I think Britain have a solid team. 4 years ago, Tommy Searle was flying and Ben Watson was going really well as well, and they were sort of in the mix for a podium. I don't know whether they'll be that this year, but you would think certainly at least a top 10 that you would be expecting. I think they should all get solid results if all the bikes hold together and there's no major mistakes. But I think Ben, whether it's expense reasons or Kawasaki, obviously Ben and Fev aren't going, so there's something underlying there.
Mm.
But I think Ben's a bit unlucky, and he's obviously raced the track before 4 years ago, so he knows the track as well. But it's still not a bad team. I know how quick Cyril can still go. Anstey proved whenever he went to the AMA that he's got pace just straight out the box on a 450 Honda. So he's going to have pace, and then obviously Dean's just been in around the top 10 as well there. So he's going actually pretty well for coming off the couch, as it were. So I think they'll be solid. Probably sixth to eighth. Maybe they would be happy enough with that.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Chamberlain, since he's came in, has done really, really well. I
Yeah, he
think
gets a good team
podium,
atmosphere
podium.
too.
Yeah, I think it's a podium every time he's managed the team actually. So they're on a bit of a podium streak there. But I do think this year will be the year it sadly comes to an end. As you say, I think Ben Watson would have been my number one pick as well. But obviously there is underlying reasons there. I think Kawasaki wanted too much money, and obviously have they got the money to spend on Watson to go just to race the nations, which they're not going to win anyway. A
Mm-hmm.
podium would probably be the best GP could do. Um, for me, Wilson was a bit of a surprise pick, to be honest. Obviously, he has raced the event before, but if you're going to go there with the mentality, maybe to save money, I maybe would have went with Josh Gilbert instead. Give somebody else the experience of racing the event. They probably could have got a factory husky, you would think, for Josh to ride. So that would have been
He's had
interesting.
a
But
good
like,
year in America and in
yeah,
Britain, so
exactly. So I think it would have been a nice reward for him at the end of the season, racing them across the nations. But obviously, Searle and Anstey, you can completely understand why they're going. They've got the experience and the speed. It's just maybe a question mark with Anstey's machinery. It obviously didn't go so well and that the AMA Nationals he did this year, but he'll definitely have the pace, that's for sure. So yeah, I think probably 5 to 10, anywhere around that will probably be GB spot. So it will, you would think.
right. So here we go. Team Ireland.
Good team this year. I'm happy.
Good team, strong team. Martin Barr's back. We'll not go any further on that, but it's good he's back. He's been the leading rider really in Britain this year. Stuart Edmonds on the 450 again. He was reserve, but with Jason Mira having illness, Stuart actually got injured as well, broke his wrist, and I actually thought he was out for the rest of the year. But he's done really well to come back. He had a fantastic ride in the last round of the British Championship. I think 2 8th places, if I remember right. So he's somehow come straight off the couch really within about a month of riding the bike and been maybe in some of the best form he's shown all year. So fair play to him for doing that. So that's a good base. And then you have John Mayer who's going to be riding Hitachi KTM with Roger McGee. John turned up out of nowhere and got a third place at the penultimate British Championship round. I think that's what went a long way to getting him the MX2 ride. He's now going to get a GP standard bike, and from our point of view, it's going to be really interesting to see how he adapts to that bike and what he can do. I just hope he doesn't get too excited and stays calm because he's a lot of pace whenever he's on
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I think massive respect to Jason Meir because he put the team before his individual needs.
it. Yeah,
Even though he's not 100% healthy, he is still riding now and he's over the worst of it. But he knows he's not going to be 100% for the event. So fair play to him for thinking of the team and seeing the bigger picture and pulling out of the event. I think that he deserves a lot of respect for that, because a lot of riders in his shoes, maybe everyone wants to go to the Motocross the Nations for Team Ireland in this country, so they maybe would have went, but massive respect for him pulling out first of all. And obviously Martin Barr's back, fantastic. He's been the best rider from the country this year, so it made complete sense to pick him. Um, Obviously John Muir riding a Hitachi Milwaukee fueled by KTM. He's been out in Belgium a few times riding the bike, I think. So it's going on. And I mean, if he can get third in a British Championship moto off his mate's bike, he should be, hopefully, he should be able to motor
Up a
in this
level, yeah.
Hitachi KTM, hopefully. And then obviously Stuart Edmonds, he's got so much experience this event. Personally, if it was me, I probably would have picked Glenn McCormick, but it doesn't mean that I don't think the team's good, and I know 100% Edmonds will give it all, and he's got the experience. He's been there and done that, and he's done so much for Ireland at this event
And he can
already. He's
step
saved
up.
us a few times,
Yeah.
so he can certainly step up and he'll give it his best. And on the day, I've no I've no doubt that he'll deliver, and hopefully we can avoid the B final. But if we make it to the B final, hopefully we can do what we usually do, with the exception of last year, and pull out a miracle and win it and get to the main event.
And they
And then they'll
almost
all be
pulled out.
they'll all be knackered down at the end of the day. So much riding.
And they almost pulled a miracle last year as well. Jason actually
Yeah,
led the
Jason was
team almost
fantastic.
in.
Yeah.
But yeah, Martin Barr's obviously been to Red Bud. He raced it 4 years ago, had good results and good speed. So there is that bit of experience there as well in terms of the track, the layout, the feel of the place. Because for anyone that hasn't been there, it's absolutely massive. You'll see when we get there on Friday. It's so vast, the amount of campers and motorhomes and the amount of people there is it's absolutely crazy. So it's an experience just to go and see all that. And Martin obviously has been there and done it. So it's good to have him even from that side, but obviously he still knows how to ride a bike pretty quick. So I think Ireland do qualify now. Whether they go straight from on the Saturday without having to go to the B final, I don't know. I think again a wee bit like Mantova last year. They'll probably get in if they don't make mistakes and don't have a disastrous start or something like that. So I think they will eventually get to that F final. So that leaves one thing: predictions. Top three on the nations and individual winners. Go.
Top three in the nations. I'll go. You've hit me here. I haven't really thought about this.
Sure, it's the week of the nations.
I know, but usually wait till the day I'm there or something. Well, I'm going America to win it. I'll go the Netherlands second, and I'll go Australia third. Individual winners: Tomac MXGP, Sexton Open, and MX2. I said earlier Hunter, so I'll stick with Hunter. But I wouldn't be surprised if Shimoda wins it either. And I really wouldn't be surprised if the Wolf for Lagenfelder win. MX2 is probably going to be the closest in terms of individual classes. But
Yeah, that's going to
I'll
be
go with
exciting.
Hunter.
Yeah.
I'll go with Hunter.
Right. I'll
Your
go
turn.
America to win because I'm not brave enough to go anywhere else. And I think I'll go France second, Holland third.
That's a big shout. France second. I could see
Australia, I
him
could
having him
see
there.
being the closest to America in some ways, but it's can Hunter and Mitch not make mistakes? I think Jet will be, and then Jet's moving up as well. There's a few things there, but again, if they were pushing America for the win and race through, it wouldn't surprise me. But I'm going America, France, Holland, and then the winners. Tomac, Sexton, it's hard not to look past them, although a Renault, if he got in an individual winner, wouldn't surprise me. And then I'm sticking with the Wolf for MX2. But like you, I have a feeling Shimoda could emerge with MX2 wins as well.
It wouldn't be a
Um,
surprise. I
but
think
I'm
MX2 is
going to
just
Wolf.
all on
Yeah,
who
the
can get the
starts.
better
Yeah.
starts. Yeah.
And I think the Wolf, if he can get the starts and with it being a bit sandy, I think, and there's that big long whip section. I mean, we saw him at Lommel, and it's slightly different, but still, he can hang off the back and do things that, he's able to pass Iago Gertz around there. So the speed, if he's feeling it around Red Bud, I think he's going to open a lot of eyes. So I'm going Kyle Wolf to win MX2. And I think that's it. I think we didn't really make any brave decisions there whatsoever. But
I
as we
would say
said,
the Wolf winning MX2 at his First Nations is quite a big shout there.
I
I'd
don't
say
think
that's
it is
pretty.
really. I mean, the Speedy showed this year. Who else has
I
really
know
shown
it's just
last
because
year?
it's his First Nations. That's why
But he's.
more
I
than
don't think
anything.
they have much pressure. Holland this year. I think
Mm,
every other team, it's a positive. You know, they'll
mm,
want to win, but they've no expectation of winning because America's such heavy favourites. Whether you're Belgium, even Italy, Holland, Australia. Australia maybe have more pressure because of the American connection
mm.
with the two Lawrence brothers, which maybe puts Mitch under a bit of pressure as
Aye,
well.
Mitch. I don't think the
But
Lawrence have any issues dealing with pressure. Like.
um, so I think Australia maybe the second most pressure. That maybe frees all the European nations to just go and give it everything they have. And with First Nations, he's two strong teammates. If it all clicks, I think he's going to be impressive.
It's going to be interesting. I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
Yeah, well, let's hope you get on the plane all right, and you can
Hopefully.
get to America and experience
Hopefully.
American motocross and Red Bud because I think you'll be pretty blown away just by how massive it is and the atmosphere and everything.
And then Ernie next year, back to France, back to Europe.
Yeah, and the contrast of that track so tight, and it's on a
Yeah.
hill, and then Red Bud's so vast, so it's going to be one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
But that's it. MX of Nations preview. MXGP meets AMA, and then that'll be that. We'll see who wins, probably America, and then we'll come back with the review, and then we'll look forward to World Supercross. Get another chance to see Eli Tomac and Ken Roxon, who's been in the headlines recently.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
Go
story
at
yet to
it.
be told as well. So we'll reconvene in a week's time on it, and we'll get this flight on Thursday and head off to the nations.
Ciao for now.
Speak to you later.